I love so many things about North Dakota, and one of the things I love the best is how anxious we are to help one another. You see it all the time. You've seen the traffic jams at entryways when you're trying to go into a restaurant or a building as people stop to hold the doors open for one another. If you've ever stopped alongside one of our roads to take a picture or a phone call or to change a tire, you've probably had multiple people stop just to make sure you don't need any help. Another way North Dakotans can show kindness to their neighbors is by getting vaccinated. Vaccinations keep vulnerable people safe from severe illness and death. They keep our economy running by keeping our businesses open. They help us stay mentally healthy by allowing us to connect with others through church events or community groups. They also keep our healthcare workers safe and on the job. Getting vaccinated is a choice you can make to help your neighbors, your community, and your state. So talk to your doctor about it and follow their advice to get the vaccinations that will help keep you and all the people you care about healthy and happy. To learn more, go to spreadlovenotcovidnd.org, a website set up by the North Dakota State University Center for Immunization Research and Education.
Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month. You'll get unlimited access to the news you need to stay engaged and connected to your community. Visit inforum.com/subscribe now to get 3 months of local news for only 99 cents a month.
Welcome to Plain Talk, and a story that I wrote about this week was a situation at the University of North Dakota involving, the nickname. And gosh, we've sure talked about nicknames at the University of North Dakota a lot over the years. But basically, it had to do with a nickname, NODAK. We're all familiar with that. We're from North Dakota. We know what NODAK means. I think at one time it's even maybe our postal abbreviation. I don't know. But a hugely popular iteration of the hugely popular hockey team at the University of North Dakota has been a jersey that says NODAK across the front. It's kind of retro, kind of throwback. A lot of people think they're cool, and hey, they are cool. But it turns out that someone owned the trademark, or I should say an LLC called NODAK LLC, owned that trademark, registered it with the United States authorities, the federal authorities, the federal trademark office. And the registered agent and the person listed on the trademark was Brianna Berry, who is daughter to hockey coach Brad Berry. And that interested me because obviously the coach makes decisions about which jerseys his players use on the ice. Those decisions, I think we all understand, have an impact on the value of merchandise that might bear that trademark that his daughter owns or obviously is in some way involved with. Anyway, here to talk with me about all that is the president of the University of North Dakota, Andy Armacost. President Armacost, welcome, and thank you for coming on.
Great. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate the opportunity. It's good to be here.
When did you first find out about this situation?
Oh, it was probably about a week and a half ago. And it turns out, even ahead of the article that you wrote and the request for information that you had asked for, there was a call that had come in through the NDUS, North Dakota University System, just saying, hey, there's something that we're concerned about, and could you please look into it? So that was forwarded from the system to us, and we began looking into it immediately.
So that was like a report, like somebody concerned and contacted the North Dakota University System office. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. So the university system has a great system where if any citizen or anyone really has a concern about anything that's happening on any of the 11 campuses, they can call in. It's affectionately known as the Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline. But it's really any matters of concern that a citizen has, they can call into that hotline and say, hey, here's the issue. And it's anonymous. So it really protects the identity of the person who's reporting. It's a good system.
So the news as of last night was that the university has obtained the trademark. There's been no financial transaction related to that. Were there any sort of other than monetary? Were there any sort of inducements or parts of that deal other than NODAK LLC just turning the trademark over to the school?
No, it was just an assignment of the registration of the trademark from NODAK LLC to the university, and so no financial or no conditions were placed upon it. So just a simple transfer. So NODAK LLC no longer has the rights in the trademark.
Have you spoken to Coach Barry about this and about what his involvement was in this?
So I haven't. His direct supervisor, of course, is Bill Chaves, our athletic director. And so all the conversations about the situation actually happened between Bill Chaves and Coach Barry.
What can you tell us about those conversations? I mean, I think people are curious to know, was the coach aware that his daughter was involved in I guess, securing a trademark that the school was using? So
I don't know if Coach Barry knew about the holding of the trademark by his daughter. And I don't know if Bill asked him specifically what happened and when he knew it, but I'm certain that that's a question I'll have for Athletic Director Bill Chaves. But I know my interactions with Coach Barry are fairly frequent, and I've had nothing but respect for the character and leadership that he's shown, not just for the hockey program, but across the campus over the 2.5 years that I've been on the campus.
The North Dakota University System has a policy regarding conflicts of interest, and it advises employees to obviously avoid conflicts and also that their close relations avoid anything that might even appear to be a conflict. This looks like, at least has the appearance of a conflict of interest where the coach is in a position to take actions that could, at least before the transaction took place, was in a position to take actions that could increase the value of the trademark owned by a close family member. Are you concerned about that, violation of that policy?
Yeah. So the great news about the system policy is that we actually amplify it locally. So we have a UND policy on conflicts of interest. Ordinarily, those are conflicts of interest with regard to research and activities that happen as part of a university. But we also have an extension of that conflict of interest policy that talks about all other matters, employment and consulting and representation if somebody appears in ads or items of this nature. And it's important for us to really to make sure that all of our employees are abiding by what's in both the state policy and the campus policy. And let me tell you, there are cases on campus where we identify appearances of conflicts of interest. And what happens in cases like this is a supervisor, once they become aware of it, work with the member to resolve any either appearance or actual conflict of interest. There's also part of our system is we ask each employee, we expect each employee to fill out a form every year that identifies potential conflicts of interest. And of course, we'll look at that in Coach Barry's case to see if he had done that. But certainly the promptness with once his supervisor went to him, consistent with the policy, to resolve the appearance of a conflict of interest, it was resolved very quickly. And again, that work began prior to the story that you wrote, and it took a little bit of time for us to actually get to the point where NODAK LLC reached out, and once they reached out, resolved it as quickly as possible, actually within a matter of less than a day.
When NODAK LLC reached out, who was that? Who's the representative from NODAK LLC that you dealt with?
I don't know specifically who it was. Whether it was a member of the LLC or whether it was legal counsel. I know who they reached out to, and that's the Assistant Attorney General, who is a state employee who actually advises the university on matters like this, how to identify conflicts of interest and how to resolve them. And the particular counsel that worked with us is also an expert in trademark law.
Was there any when you own a trademark, obviously you can lease it out for people to use it. Were there any, now that it's being transferred to the university, were there any existing leases or obligations or anything that came along with it?
Not with NODAK LLC. So the interesting part of this is if you look at old photographs of hockey players at UND, you'll see them wearing the same NODAK jersey.
Sure.
Or a very similar version. And the version we have is probably more stylized now, but it's very similar. So this has been a mark of the university for a while, and in particular, it's been used in commerce prior to any filing by NODAK LLC. In other words, common law allows one who is using a mark to have the rights to that mark, and so we're considered senior users of the mark, and so in spite of any registration that was done by NODAK LLC or any other company for that matter, we would still have the rights to use the mark for the purposes that we had been using, and that's for hockey and for merchandising around the hockey program. So so it's there was no agreement or lease relationship with NODAK LLC. We did have a private vendor, in April of 2020. This was in the press release that we put out last night, who said, hey, the vendor approached our the trademark management firm that we use and said, hey, we'd like to create merchandise around this NODAK jersey. And it was kind of one-time use initially. We didn't know at that point that it would be as popular as it was. And when it was first launched, the NODAK emblem kind of flew off the shelves at the retail sites where it was carried. So that's when we knew that this was resonating with the fans.
I know that Coach Barry, obviously he has say over which uniforms his players use. I mean, I think I was reading an article where he was saying that their black uniforms are kind of their business suits, right? When they mean to go out there and really take an opponent to task, they wear their black ones. So the coach is involved in that. Was he involved in the development of the NODAK jerseys specifically, like as an option for the team? Was he involved in that process of choosing NODAK?
So I don't know the degree to which Coach Barry was involved in any of those decisions, but let me go back to the fact that the NODAK jersey had been used for decades prior as well, right? This was kind of a throwback item.
Sure.
So I don't know if Coach Barry was involved in kind of the ruminations about whether or not we should bring back a throwback jersey that said NODAK on it. So I don't know. But again, I think it's important to kind of restate the fact that there were never any requests made by NODAK LLC for us to pay royalties or license fees or anything to them. And furthermore, they never created any merchandise around the NODAK jersey. So there was really, to the best of my knowledge, no commerce that was generated by their use of the trademark.
We just talked about, obviously, the North Dakota University System's conflict of interest policy. You said that is amplified in UND's own policy. You talked about the importance of policies like that. Are you planning any sort of an investigation or review to be satisfied that policy wasn't violated in this case by Coach Barry or any other member of the university?
So the review that's happened so far has been through the work of the Assistant Attorney General, who, again, doesn't report to me and is a good authority on trademark issues and just really has a good sense of whether there was any kind of violation of either policy or law. And at this point, he and I both believe that the steps that were taken actually resolved the appearance of the conflict of interest. Now, I will go back to him and say, is there a need, in his opinion, for us to go back and examine kind of the history of how we got here a little more closely? But through the work that we've done over the last couple of weeks, again, no commerce was generated by this mark that we're aware of, and the indication again is that there was no actual conflict of interest. There was no, there's been no evidence of influence by Coach Barry on the kind of the monetization of his daughter's LLC.
I had asked you previously if you were aware of what Coach Barry's involvement was with that LLC. In your mind, isn't that a question you want answered? That if the coach was involved in, I don't know, forming the LLC or securing the trademark, that seems like an important question to answer, isn't it?
Again, it could have very well been answered in conversations between Coach Barry and his supervisor. That's something that, of course, I'll talk to Athletic Director Chaves about.
Going forward, I've heard a lot of people asking why why it doesn't seem like the hockey team is using the Fighting Hawks term. And again, I mean, there's so much history about the nickname at the University of North Dakota. I don't think anybody listening to this needs an introduction to all of that. But after the Fighting Sioux was retired and we had an interim period with no nickname, Fighting Hawks was chosen. And I know a lot of the teams use Fighting Hawks. It seems like the hockey team doesn't. Are you aware, is there a resistance from the hockey team to using the Fighting Hawks nickname?
If you've seen recent pictures of Coach Barry, there was a great veterans photo of him wearing kind of a stylized camouflage version of the Fighting Hawk logo. They certainly wear the Fighting Hawks on their sleeves, on the shoulders of all of their jerseys. And in fact, the special version of the NODAK that was at the Hall of Fame game in Las Vegas had the hawk on the backside of the jersey as well. The common people like the logos. So there is as you know, a rich history, and particularly among the fans. And you see that in the stadiums where the Fighting Hawks actually fight. We do see the old mark, the old logo frequently. But the University of North Dakota, we are the Fighting Hawks across all sports. But you've obviously observed the same thing I have, which is particularly in hockey, the fans still hold tight to the old logo and to the tradition of the team.
Do you feel like is there anything like a new policy or training or anything for I guess anything that the school could do to avoid this sort of thing? Because again, I mean, the appearance from the outside looking in, you have a very prominent, very highly paid public official in Coach Barry, who again was in a position to enhance the value of a trademark owned by an LLC associated with his daughter. I mean, I guess it's really hard for me to understand. I mean, what was their intent in registering the trademark? That's not an uncomplicated process, nor is it a free process, by the way. I mean, there was some investment put into registering that trademark, and I think the question we're all wondering is why? And I mean, obviously now it's been resolved, as you said, but it also happened after a call to the fraud hotline and my report about it. So I think a lot of people, there's still just a big question mark there. How do we get an answer to that?
Yeah, I think the person, of course, who can best answer why they formed the company is the person who formed the company. And I know, as you posted on your website, there was imagery of the type of product that she envisioned, which I think was, I saw a T-shirt with, I think you posted it. It was with a gold bedazzled collar that said NODAK on it, right? And
yeah, I think that was part of the trademark filing. I think she had an image of it.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And I think you would have to speak with the owner of the company to find out what the motivation was for her to actually launch NODAK LLC. I can't answer on her behalf, but certainly I know that Athletic Director Chaves and Coach Barry certainly have had conversations about those, but I haven't dug into that. Our priority in the last week of work is we identified an appearance of a conflict of interest, as did you, but through the hotline. Our number one goal was to find out what's the best way to resolve any appearance of a conflict of interest. But the broader question that you're asking is, what do we do to show that there was no intended conflict of interest?
How do you speak to me about? I mean, obviously the school made the jersey. You had, and I'm assuming the genesis of at least the modern iteration of the NODAK jersey, you said was a private. You can correct me if I got this wrong, but a private company reached out and said, "Hey, these jerseys are cool. We'd like to make them." The team started wearing them. Introduced them as a jersey they wear out on the ice, and I guess the question was, and maybe you answered this partially in the university's release, but why not trademark NODAK? I mean, obviously at the time in 2020, the trademark we've been talking about hadn't been filed yet, but why not file for it? I know back in 2015, the school began the process of trademarking NODAKs. Note the plural; it's distinct from NODAK, but abandon it. why not? I mean, especially when the jersey became so popular, why didn't the school try to trademark that so they could protect, obviously, something that had become very popular at least in terms of merchandise sales?
Yeah, good question. I don't have a complete answer to that. Of course, there was a global pandemic happening in April of 2020 when that request came in from the private vendor. That could have influenced things. But I'll go back to our understanding of trademark law, and that is that we were the senior users of the mark. We had used it. We were planning to continue to use it, and that offers protection by law. And so at that point, it was still an experiment. There was no knowledge of how this mark would actually play out. And what I remember when they said we sold out of the first 450 jerseys at one of the retail centers in a matter of a day. Then it became clear that, hey, this might be a mark or an idea that the hockey community really latches onto. So at the time, again, it was experimental. We had protection under common law, and we felt that was enough. But now we see we now have that registration as a consequence of the action with NODAK LLC. So again, hindsight is great, but I suppose, and again, I wasn't involved in those discussions or those decisions, but hindsight might tell us, yeah, we could have protected it and avoided this altogether. I think that would have avoided your news article the other day and some of this discussion. But again, I think going forward, we're proud of how the NODAK logo has been received. We'll continue to promote the Fighting Hawk logo as well. But the NODAK is certainly something that is appealing to the fans, in particular the hockey fans here at UND.
I thank you for your time, President. And I had just one last question before I let you go. Do you have any expectation that Coach Barry address the public about this? And I know some of this is obviously his daughter, who is not a university employee, who may or may not have done this on her own, but the coach is obviously a university employee. He represents the school. Do you expect that he should address the public and explain his participation in this?
Yeah, that'll be for Coach Barry, I think, to make a determination about how he wants to address it. He is focusing on the success of the hockey program and really working with the great young men who serve in the Fighting Hawk uniforms. If we had a case with another person on campus where there was an appearance of a conflict of interest, we would resolve it with the supervisor with the approaches that we take as outlined in policy. And I don't believe I would ask them to make public statements about it. So this will really be, for Coach Barry, as one of our more public figures, a decision that he'll have to wrestle with about whether he wants to make any statements about it. I won't speak on his behalf with regard to that.
President Armacost, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Rob.
Did you know Forum Communications Company has a robust podcast library? At inforum.com/podcasts, we have everything from politics, sports, true crime, outdoor adventure, and more. Visit inforum.com/podcasts and explore them all today.